This is day 670 of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi. If you'd like to sponsor or come and share more of the Arukh HaShulchan Yomi, please contact me directly. It would be very greatly appreciated. Today we are doing Siman Tov Aleph, Sig Gimel, to Tov Dalid, Sig Beis. Okay, Aleph, Sig Gimel. Objects of a non-Jew, they really don't have, or don't require makom shvisa when Shabbos begins. And Balaam Moshe shvisa because their owners, they're not Jews, so are not relevant to the concept of shvisa. I mean, Kishul Kam goes to shvisa mishum chabtei so, but nevertheless, it's kind of like Xera, because the whole concept of Chumen is the Rabbanon, but they were goes here at the shvisa. Well, actually, I'm going to address that point. There goes a shvisa by the top of the objects of a non-Jew, mishum chefte Yisrael, because of the objects of a Jew. Shem Omer Shabahem ain't shvisa. If they're going to say there's no shvisa by the chaflotzim, by the objects of a non-Jew, and they're going to say the same thing about the object of a Jew. It's not Xera. The Kulachar Xera, it's all one Xera. Shachafetzim you can do shvisa that objects acquire shvisa. The lo kaimaha. If you're not going to give the objects of non-Jew concept of shvisa, then people are not going to accept the concept of shvisa for the objects of a Jew. So if they have shvisa in their place for 2,000 amos on each side. Bir Allah says even the shvisa of the akum himself was of the non-Jew himself, the owner was elsewhere at a distance. We don't go after him to ask him to move the kalim, but because really a non-Jew has no shvisa. It's the keli which you're giving shvisa. It's not the gavra, it's the chefza. So the place where the keli is put, that's where we follow. Nevertheless, even though the post come out, they're calling shvisa in their place. It's possible that it's talking about where the non-Jew is there with the keli. But when the non-Jew is not in the place where the keli is, perhaps they go after the non-Jew, and therefore you wouldn't be able to take them anywhere, and that would be like a Jew. I don't think we would pass that way because that's chumra seira on a chumra. But that's what it is a possibility. So we need to say that if the guy is in Timbuktu and his object is in New York, so it can't go anywhere. Okay. Back to if a non-Jew brought them to say which is beyond the original tchum of these objects, the city is surrounded by a wall, and it was enclosed for habitation. Shiosh was Hafukah, meaning first the house was built and then the enclosure. You can move them in the entire city. So for Yoshua, it's the other way around. First they had the wall, then they built the houses. Aim Talmud only moved 4 Amos, not throughout the entire city. The Bialocha says that some people say you don't even need a heck of mechitza in the entire city, if it's regardless of whether it has a wall or not. Presumably we're talking about Yontav, of course. Mr. Burshatian says that the only time it's a problem if Hukva Sof Yoshva is if the hecker was originally more than a base sign. But if it's a sign or less, then you can then there's no problem carrying the entire object, entire town, even if it was Yoshva Hukva Sof Yoshva. It's a bit of a chiddush. But if you put them into the courtyard, you can move them. Not you put them to the courtyard, you can carry the entire courtyard. Obviously, that's even on Shabbos, right? In the Chatzar. We assume that cities by default are considered close to purpose habitation. They build the houses and then they surround it with walls. We assume that a fortress is not Mukav L'Dirk. Most times, we already saw this. If the city has its source of Pesach, which is made for the purpose of an Erev, I would say Metal Mekuli and Gary in its entirety. Became a movie, and so too on the street. So if you're careful, if a Jew if you as a Jew you loan your objects to a non-Jew before Shabbos and he brought them back on Shabbos, so chutz arba amos, you shouldn't take them more than 4 amos. Im einer mukaf, the city is not surrounded by a wall. Or any mukaf is there, it's not wasn't enclosed by for the purpose of habitation. Shei kakli hu b'shus hashol in yoshvisa. An object goes by the borrower. With the borrower had to be in Shabbos, it goes by his status, which them sin shin tzadik zayin. Okay, tough base. If you have a water canal between two tchumim. Of kasa to Rishon both right. Choretz Malimai, if you have a canal full of water, mechunasim, which is gathered in that canal, sounds like it's not flowing water like a river, but rather it's just like a pit. Should be changed tchumim Shabbos, which is between two tchumim. Mitzvahs the tchum ear, zam mitzvahs the tchumim and those tchumim overlap, and the water is in both of them. Shteyos l'sus and I feel b'toch tchum. Neither city is allowed to fill up from this water, even within their own tchum. Because water within the tchum requires the tchum of that city, and they're flowing back and forth. Again mixed together. So you have to make a tchitza at the end of the tchum, in the middle of the water, in order to separate them. Even if the wall is hanging, it doesn't reach the ground of the pit. The Shokanabam, and even if it's made out of reeds, sag is sufficient. If the water, however, is flowing, if it is a river, you don't need anything. Because flowing water, as we said, does not require shvisa, and therefore they require the status of the person who fills them up. The Shul says that this is talking about where where this water trench is at the end of the tchum of each one. So therefore, part of it is in the tchum of the other person, the other one, and not in its own tchum. But if the charitz is all in overlaps in its entirety, overlapping its entirety by both tchumin, such as when it's between two cities, which where between two cities only 3,000 amos, and the trench is in the middle. So in that case, they both fill water without any mechitza, because we say yesh breira. And therefore, each one he goes and takes water from each city goes and takes water from the chritz is taking its own water. The Bialacha also says that if the trench is very wide and has a large surface area which is not connected to either tchum, each one can fill up the water within their side of the tchum, because presumably we're saying that the large gap in the middle, which doesn't look to either tchum, it's like a wall between the two tchumim. So these are the two big kulas which Mishnah Berurah does bring down in terms of this situation. So let's see, Arukh HaShulchan brings them down as well. That we say the some is in the tchum of the other city. Even they're not within the tchum of the other city. We're talking about a chritz who starts in one tchum and then goes outside the tchum. And the water in the tchum gets mixed up on the water which is outside the tchum. That's not a problem. The water outside the tchum, hareim hefker. They're hefker. They're not considered to be owned, and therefore they're not a problem. Even if the water is not flowing, they don't require shvisa, they're like the tchum of the person who fills up the water. Don't ask. In that case, none of the water has shvisa. Because there are no owners. No. The people within the tchum, they are the owners. The people the tchum extends into this water, they are the owners. Because they have das on this trench. And when you do need a wall, it has to be either 9 tvachim above the water and 10 1 in the water, or 10 or 10 in the water and 1 outside the water, like we saw in a similar halacha in Siman Shin Vav. the Bali Shalom did not elaborate because they relied on what they wrote over there. My moshkim, water which flows in social tikkun doesn't require any fix. The game of the 90s, since it's flowing, low kona shvisa, they don't require shvisa. Shem there because was clarified that filu, even hamayonas ha'om, those even springs which are stationary, like our wells, nevertheless mikri naide. They're called flowing. They're called moving because they're flowing. For low kona shvisa, they don't acquire shvisa. Belhem gragli mamale, and their status goes by the person who fills up the water from them. Gimel Isa Bagar says the bar hamole teven or chavilo shel teven, a pit which is full of a straw or a bundle of straw. Hamedes b'shnei tchumei Shabbos, which stands between two tchumim. El machlim mikan levehemtam. The people of the one town can feed their animals from the one side and the others from the other side. We're not concerned each one take from outside its chum. Near it seems the Magmara Sham the Daf Klami Rabbeim Shilchlu. It's only to put the animals there that they should eat themselves. But that you remove the hay from the stack and put it into their feed bags, that's awesome. In Sham Batan this Barasin Shinai base, Gabi Matbin Shin Chatzim Bichatzeros, in Sham, this is already clarified in the case of where you have a pile of grain between two Chatzeros. There's obviously if you do it yourself, you might come to remove the pile. If the animals do it, we're not choishes for that. Tov Gimel, Din Biko Shikifua Einam Yehudi Einam Yehudi Tchumen. If you have a valley which is enclosed by a non-Jew, what's its status for Tchumen? Alec, finally his bites already been clarified. But Shin side Vav. I may have missed Peskin Bishaburi about something, but I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, he says Arukh HaShulchan back in Aleph and Tabay said you need to have just Shulchanim, and should be Allah already brought there. There's a possibility you don't even need that, but it remains as a tzarchim. Okay, so Aleph and Tav Gimel. We learn Shin Stanik. Well, the Amakom Shushav is a place where you are Kona Shvisa, and Bechal Apayim Shel Tchum, it's not included in 2,000 Tchum. I feel Shabbos here Gedoyla, in the Kona Shvisa in a large city, Antiochia, and Bechal Shushan Tchum starts outside the city. The Elbe Simon Shin Stanik base is by the Mechitza Shana says B'Shabbos Shemon Mechitza. We learned that if a wall goes up on Shabbos, it's still called a wall. Peace if that's the case, according to this, Im Irash Echab Shabbos Abigah Gdola. Somebody was Makabel Shabbos in a large valley. Uvo Kutim and Najus came be Kifula Abika Mechisa Shabbos in this store, and they're enclosed in walls on Shabbos. And this enclosure was the purpose of habitation. Konshisham Batim of Uzarim, such as there's some scattered houses there. Bikifula and Bati, and they made the enclosure for those houses. Have a Yashab Sofukov, in which case it's a classic case where the area is settled and then enclosed. To have a Heklev there, which is considered by default a enclosure for purpose habitation. So even though the wall came with Shabbos, should be able to walk the entire biko, which is in the enclosure, and 2,000 amos beyond. Nevertheless, does work that way. The Chazamru, the Davka Shabbos Ma'avir Mechisim Yod Yoim. They're showing Kabbalah. It's only if you were in the airspace of walls, legitimate walls for Shabbos, then that entire walled area is going to be 4 hours. I have a close Shabbos Ma'avir Mechitzos, but if you do Mechitzos only Choshen, but if those walls were not existing at the time Shabbos began, then you can't start counting 2,000 amos from beyond them. But time near, it seems the reason is that it's man k'nis the shvisa b'k'nis the Shabbos. The time you require shvisa is when Shabbos comes in. Doesn't like will it, and that's when the boundaries of the chum are determined. Therefore, you then began Shabbos in the airspace of walls. Now, those walls became like 4 amos for you. When Shabbos came in, you were not in an airspace of walls; they didn't exist. So the clock of Tchum started ticking for you from where you are, at least from 4 amos where you are when Shabbos began. So Erev Shlosh Shabbos, that can't change on Shabbos. Shabbos in this classic example of Shabbos, once it comes Usr, it remains Usr. Even though somebody went outside the tchum who only has 4 amos. In the Subu Shabbos, Ben Avir Mechisa, but Shabbos, he put him into airspace of walls. The whole wall space is only 4 amos for him. As we shall see. That is because of his oppressive situation. Shano Rakar Amos, he should only have 4 amos. They give it a kula. Us who have a kula, Kedal Amos, made the entire coast area like 4 amos. Avazeshi Yeshlo Tchum Sholin. But this guy already has 2,000 amos anyway. Lo Nachshav look down amos. You don't consider the enclosure which was constructed on Shabbos as down amos. Shalosh Shabbos Mechim didn't exist when Shabbos began, or he didn't. But it wasn't Shabbos when Shabbos began. So the guy lands in an airport on Shabbos by mistake. So he has the whole airport basically to go because the whole airport is surrounded by walls. That's a kind of very important case very important case which can come up. Okay, both the feet match Miyarno ain't the dimyukah. Besides, according to what we explained, there's no comparison. The mikan ikartam sharei welcome atzmo nikba but knisas Shabbos to cheshbon atchum. Here, the main reason is because this place became fixed on Shabbos in the reckoning of the tchum, right? Because there were no walls at the beginning of Shabbos. Hashem B'Shem, as opposed to there where those walls existed at the beginning of Shabbos, he just wasn't in them inside that airport. Gimel Vechavidin Tiltu. Okay, that's in terms of walking. What about carrying? You know, Cameron, the Mechitzu and Asa B'Shabbos HaMechitzu. This is a wall, man, Shabbos is a wall. Harimutza Tatu B'Kuli carrying the entire area. So Shusiyah Gomor, it's absolute Shusiyah. You cover the door. They were surrounded for the purpose of habitation. Kosh Kosabnu, close to the purpose of habitation. Anami Mekim said Yosem Yalpaimam, but if this enclosed area is more than 2,000 amos, for never Shailech, but Yosem Yalpaimam, he can't walk more than 2,000 in it. Because the walls were constructed on Shabbos, like we said, he can carry in its entirety, but can't walk in its entirety. You still carry the entire area by throwing it. To toss things around is mutter its entirety. I will tell the other, but to carry action in your hands, rak b'toch alpayim mutter is only mutter within 2,000 hours. They isra alicha because you can't walk any further than that. Bashu is clear to Bezrika who davka shlo b'chafotzav. It's throwing something outside the tchum, even in this enclosure, can't be done by your own objects. You can't throw your own objects outside your own tchum. Like we learned that an animal and objects could like the status of the owner. Okay, Rashi does wait. It's a little differently. Rabbi Ramaka said, if you talk to mamish also chutz amos. No. You can't even carry at all outside your 4 amos. If you talk chumash alpayim, even down those 2,000 amos. Ayin sham. Zoshita sartaisus sham. That's the opinion of Taisus. By the time they came in the chutz alpayim, also taltos, it's beyond 2,000 amos. He may not carry. And can't have a difference of being law. So the place where he can carry is as if it's completely open. The place where it's forbidden. Ayin Sham. So therefore, parts of Makkah Masla, you can't carry even in that area more than 4 amos. Rashi says, the same will make a difference on Makkah Masla. Rashi shows the fact that the tchum ends before the enclosure is not considered to be part that's open to place that is also to it. Even though there we said you can throw things into there, and you can't have a Makkah Mamutzo, so it's a place which is mutter to him at least in some limited way. What you can't carry there, that's because you can't walk there. Not because you can't carry there. In the brackets. Say this for where it says that parts of Milua, he uses that according to the opinion that you can't carry it all even by Zrika in the outer place beyond your 2,000 amos from there to the edge of the enclosure. So again, because you might come to follow your object. So in that case, it's forbidden outside 2,000 altogether, but till 2 to carry shopping. So that's called Nivatul Makamasa because there's no heter carrying whatsoever. But that doesn't work. It's not a problem according to that which Shmuel holds. we pass Shmuel, the Matal is because you're allowed to carry its entirety by throwing. King of Sabatas, Machria Karashi. King of Shamar Shabbat, King of Bishop, King of Rabbit, Days Shabbos, his Kimotas, you all agree to this. And the Gra also, the Bishop says also the Gra. Tov Dalad, you may have Shkul Malam Esora im lo, lab. Are the Tchumim above 10 Tvachim or not? Al Vigmar is suffering, there's a question. Im yesh Tchumim Malam Esora, if the Tchumim above 10 Tvachim, im lav not. But down there as suffix nira. Why is there suffix? We assume the aim rishus rabbi the malam yud. There's no rishus rabbi above 10 tefachim. The aim karmelis malam yud, and there's no karmelis above 10 tefachim. What's that? Shim mem hey. Rishus yach goes all the way up to the sky. V'rubei tchum einam el rishus rabbi mitchel karmelis. Most of an issue, the discussion of tchum is about an area which is like it was just rabbi more. It was just rabbi more karmelis. Shus Yachin, Mukam Zadir, because generally speaking, Shus Yachin is enclosed to the person's habitation, and Edom does the Tchum. It's not in the clock of the Tchum. The next is that Amos, because that whole area, no matter how large, is considered to be for Amos. Commotion these words, we explain. That's the case above 10 Tchum. The ancient Lo Shus Ram Lo Karmas, where there's no Shus Ram nor Karmas. Lo Shach Lo Sham Tchum. Tchum is not relevant there. Ultimately, Lo or perhaps there's no difference. Both times he's brought up exhibits he designed. This was going to get to another explanation of this issue later on. Based in Ram Perchav Zayin didn't give Makasav Gamkin. The Ram writes, Amal Chutz Tchum Lamal Mesar Tvachim. Some what has been saying works goes up outside the Tchum, but above 10 Tvachim. I raise the suffix Im Yesh Tchum Lamal Mesar. Says Rambam, we're not sure the Tchum above 10 or in Tchum Lamal Mesar or not. I can show them. Like the Arukh HaShulchan, Lama Lech Real Dina Kedarko. Why why was not Makriya? Because it's the Rabbanan, we should be lenient. We shouldn't the Shitas Yud Beis Mil Daraisa, because since the Ram Shita said Yud Beis Mil is a Tchum Daraisa, so therefore Yesh Tchum Daraisa, there are Tchum Daraisa, Yesh Tchum Darabanan. Well, I skipped. The Shitas Yud Beis Mil Daraisa, Yesh Tchum Daraisa. I don't think I skipped actually. According to my opinion, that there is Tchum Shva Mil. So there is some tchum miraisa. Yes, the Rabban there was a tchum which is 2,000 alpine mama 2,000 amos. So chem b'yud beis meal have a spek of the rice tchumra. So if it's a question of 12 to 12 meal, it would be a spek of the rice. So we have to eat machmir. Alpine mama 2,000 amos have a spek of the Rabban gula. It's a suffolk Rabban, and it is not a problem. Therefore, the Rambam did not want to spend time on this. And because B'tshuva, he writes this in a responsive. But that's author Shulchan Aruch is right. So he goes outside Tchum above 10 Tvachim. I raise a suffix. I'm not sure what status is. Mashiach b'Rabbanan yes loka. But it's Rabbanan less than 2 less than 12 meal. You can be meko. If you're going more than 12 meal, of the Chum have to go to the Chum the Tchum Yud Beis meal. Having the rights going that Tchum of 12 meal is the right. So even if you're going by 10 Tvachim, you can't go more than 12 meal. I go show Rob Poskin was really happy to base meal. When most Poskin who do not hold this 12 meal cutoff, have a you can always be lenient. And then the Gra said something as similar to this leniency as well.